The wreckage of the Covenant's pride stretched across the valley like the ribcage of some ancient beast. Rhea Calder stood at its edge, her breath forming clouds in the thin air of Cairo 7, watching the smoke rise from what had been a Vryn colony ship. 3 days ago, it had been a vessel carrying refugees. Now it was a graveyard. She'd been tracking the distress beacon for 2 days, her own scout ship barely holding atmosphere after the pirate ambush that had left her stranded on this frozen moon. The Vryn weren't allies. Not exactly. The war had ended only 6 months prior, and the scars ran deep on both sides. But Rhea had learned long ago that survival didn't care about politics. The colony ship's hull had split open on impact, spilling cargo containers and bodies across the permafrost. Rhea moved through the debris field with practiced efficiency, her scanner sweeping for signs of life. Most of the readings came back negative. The Vryn were a hardy species, tall, furred, with eyes adapted for low light. But even they couldn't survive explosive decompression and a 3-kilometer fall. That's when she heard it, a sound so faint she almost missed it beneath the wind's howl. A whimper. Rhea followed the sound to a cargo bay that had somehow remained partially intact. Inside, huddled beneath what looked like insulated blankets, were 4 Vryn cubs. Their fur was matted with frost, their breathing shallow. The smallest couldn't have been more than a few months old. Standing guard over them, teeth bare despite the blood matting his side, was an older cub, perhaps the equivalent of a human 12-year-old. His amber eyes locked onto Rhea with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Easy," Rhea said softly, raising her empty hands. She knew he couldn't understand English, but tone was universal. "I'm not here to hurt you." The cub, Sarek according to the identification tag hanging from his collar, growled low in his throat. His claws extended, pathetic weapons against an adult human in survival gear, but he positioned himself between Rhea and the younger cubs anyway. Rhea's scanner beeped. Hypothermia, dehydration, internal injuries on at least 2 of them. They had hours at most. She looked around the cargo bay. Emergency supplies were scattered everywhere. Medical kits torn open and frozen solid. Food containers crushed. Water recyclers shattered. The ship's reactor was dying, its emergency heat failing. By nightfall, the temperature would drop another 40 degrees. Sarek watched as Rhea began gathering materials. She worked quickly, pulling intact panels from the walls, stripping insulation from conduits, salvaging heating elements from damaged equipment. The cub's growls became confused whines as she dragged her findings to the center of the bay. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy, both earned and exaggerated. They were the species that had fought a war against 3 allied powers and forced a stalemate. They were the ones whose ships kept flying long after they should have fallen apart, held together by what the Vryn called human stubbornness and humans called field maintenance. But there was another reputation, one quieter and less celebrated. Humans built things. Rhea's hands moved with the certainty of someone who had jury-rigged life support on a dozen dying ships. She welded metal panels with her plasma torch, creating a frame. She layered insulation inside, then wired salvaged heating coils to a portable battery pack. She reinforced the structure with support beams, then fashioned a door from a cargo container lid. Sarek watched, his aggression slowly giving way to curiosity. When Rhea activated the heating elements and warmth began radiating from the structure, his ears perked forward. A shelter. She was building a shelter. But Rhea wasn't finished. She knew the temperature, knew the failing systems, knew that warmth alone wouldn't be enough. She retrieved her own emergency rations, barely enough for herself, and placed them inside the makeshift cradle. She set up a water reclamation unit salvaged from the ship's galley. She even found intact medical supplies and administered what basic aid she could to the injured cubs. Sarek's growls had stopped entirely now. He watched as this human, this enemy of his people, this stranger, worked herself to exhaustion, building something for them. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley, Rhea completed her work. The cradle wasn't beautiful. It was a patchwork construction of scrap metal and salvaged components, held together with welds and determination. But it was warm. It was safe. It was enough. She coaxed the cubs inside one by one, speaking in that same soft tone. The younger ones went easily, drawn by warmth and the promise of food. Sarek was last, his eyes never leaving Rhea's face. Outside the cradle, Rhea planted her emergency beacon, a standard human distress marker with her ship's identification codes. It would broadcast on all frequencies, calling for rescue. In the fading light, it looked almost like a banner, a declaration. Someone survived here. Sarek understood then. This human had used her own supplies, her own rescue beacon, to save them. She had given them her warmth, her food, her chance at survival. As darkness fell and the temperature plummeted, the cubs slept in their scrap metal cradle beneath the glow of a human standard. Rhea kept watch outside, her own coat pulled tight, feeding the cradle's heating elements from her suit's dwindling power reserves. When the rescue ships arrived 36 hours later, both human and Vryn vessels responding to the beacon, they found an exhausted human engineer suffering from hypothermia and 4 living Vryn cubs in a shelter that should not have worked but did. Sarek never forgot the night a human built them a cradle from scrap metal and gave them her warmth so they could survive the cold. In the years that followed, when others spoke of humans with fear or hatred, he would remember differently. He would remember that humanity built things, and sometimes what they built was hope.